North Korea appears to have conducted another nuclear test, this time triggering seismic activity near its northeastern region. Welcome to a special edition of Asia Today. I'm Andrew LaValle, and I'm joined by the journal's Korea correspondent, Evan Ramstad. Can you tell us what we know at this point?
Yeah, it looks like the scale of the explosion was a little bit larger than we saw in both 2006 and 2009. The measurement of the seismic activity was magnitude 5.1, so that is a little bit bigger than the 4.9 of 2009, and it was a little bit smaller than that even in 2006. Now, all three of these tests, even so, all three of these tests still remain sort of small, based on the standards of nuclear tests conducted by other countries. Just by frame of reference, the first explosion by the United States in 1945 was about 18 to 20 kilotons. Today's explosion may have been in kind of the 6 to 7 to 10 kiloton range, so about half the size of what the U.S. first explosion was back in 1945.
And this is something that North Korea had said it was working on and implied that this was some sort of special test. Is that right?
Yeah, this is probably, we've been thinking this was possible for many months now. Starting about a year ago, when North Korea in March of 2012 said it was planning to do a rocket launch in April. That triggered in the minds of diplomats and analysts who follow North Korea the thought that, oh boy, here we go again, because in both 2006 and 2009, the pattern was rocket launch and then some type of penalty created by the UN Security Council, and then North Korea would get angry at the penalty and do the nuclear test. And that is the exact same pattern that has been repeated here this time. Of course, we know that in April last year, that rocket launch didn't work. It failed just a minute or so after it took off, but in December they had a successful rocket launch. And then the UN Security Council penalized them, and for about the last 3 weeks or so, we've had a series of statements of escalating rhetoric and invective promising that this type of explosion was on the way.
What kind of response can we expect to hear from South Korea and the U.S. at this point?
Well, of course, we know that the UN Security Council is going to meet urgently on Tuesday morning U.S. time, so that'll be in the evening here, Asia time. And that is probably where most of the diplomatic discussion and action will occur. It may be that individual countries, again, review the sanctions that they have imposed on Pyongyang and decide to escalate some of them. But that will be where most of the diplomatic activity occurs. I think one of the interesting things to consider is, what does North Korea do now? In some ways, they are kind of stuck in a foreign policy that keeps repeating itself and does not move forward in a kind of a new way.
And I know that we won't be able to find out all of these details immediately, but when can we find out more about what kind of explosion this was?
We'll probably know that around the weekend time. It could take 2 or 3 days for enough of the radioactive isotopes to kind of come out from the mountain. Of course, the explosion happened in an underground tomb or chamber or something like this in a mountain, in a remote mountain in northeast North Korea. And it will take some time for the isotopes to kind of come out and be detectable by monitoring stations here in South Korea, in Japan, in China, and in some ships that are at sea as well. So after that happens, they will be able to tell, right away I think they'll be able to tell if it's plutonium that was used as the fissile material. North Korea used plutonium in the past 2 explosions. What people are really curious to find out is if they use plutonium this time, or if they use the newer material that they have been involved in researching, and that is enriched uranium. So that'll be the real interesting moment, probably coming up around Saturday or Sunday or sometime next week.
All right. Evan, I know you'll be following these developments closely in the days ahead. Thanks very much for joining us.
Welcome.
For more on this news and other breaking news, visit WSJ.com. I'm Andrew LaValle.